Welcome to the Bitcoin Brew, where we serve up a weekly update on all things blockchain, digital assets, and policy. I'm Amy Andrews. I'm joined today with Christine Cranley. Christine, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing very well this fine day.
I'm so glad that you're here. We've got a packed agenda of things to talk about today.
Lots going on this week.
So much going on. This week, Bitcoin passed 24,000, a two-week high. Ethereum, Ripple, and BNB are also showing gains, even amongst the regulatory headwinds, which we're going to discuss at the onset of the show. Yikes.
Yeah, lots going on there.
Before we start, though, I do want to talk about some TBC-backed bills that are really getting some great traction in the 88th session. Specifically, our consumer protection bill that requires proof of reserves and proof of liability. That's been filed.
So exciting. So important.
Oh, yes.
Such a no-brainer.
This was the first one to get filed, actually, and it's numbered 1666.
Not so happy about that number, but at least the regulators are looking at it.
Hopefully 6 is somebody's lucky number. Also, Representative Capriglione's grid stability and Bitcoin mining taxes exemption for facilities that enroll in the ERCOT large flexible load category. They call that the LFTLF. That got filed on Monday.
Oh, my goodness. It's so good to be able to incentivize the miners for turning off during the times of emergency. So
absolutely. That's
so cheering that one on.
Also a kind of redundant number, 2223, for those of you tracking at home.
A memorable one.
Yes. Also, House Bill 591, our flare gas mitigation bill, will clarify that no severance tax is due when that gas was formerly flared or sold on site, usually to a mobile data center, aka a Bitcoin miner.
You know, this one I'm the most excited about. And full disclosure, I had to look up severance tax, what that actually meant. And it makes sense to me now. So severance, a separation. So whenever you're mining and you're pulling minerals out of Texas, out of the ground, you have to pay a tax for separating the minerals from the state of Texas because you're selling them elsewhere. And so this one would clarify that, no, if you're going to use that natural gas on site, then you shouldn't have to pay severance tax.
Perfect. So an incentivization of sorts.
Exactly.
I love it. If you're following those bills, you can go online and track them. Again, that's 1666, 2223, and 591. Today, we're discussing two exchanges that are getting some heat, a new NFT project built right into the Bitcoin blockchain, and a dynamic development between Texas and El Salvador. Christine, are you ready?
I think so.
Let's do it.
Let's get into it. So, starting off on the regulatory front. The Blockchain Association, based out of Washington, has filed an amicus brief, or a friend of the court brief, in the Coinbase insider trading case. So let's recap this case for just a moment. Last year, the Coinbase manager, Ihsan Wahi, was charged for tipping off his brother and his friend about the new listing of 9 tokens. So they were able to purchase the tokens right before the listing went live, and I think there was $1.5 million that was made because of that front running. And so in this case, they have been charged on 2 different counts. So the first would be federal charges filed by the Department of Justice, and it's actually 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. But on top of that, the SEC has piled on civil charges of securities fraud. Now, central to the SEC's complaint is the characterization of these 9 tokens in question as securities. And so Wahi's lawyers have argued that the tokens are not securities. They've never been named securities, and therefore securities fraud does not apply. The Blockchain Association that's filed this brief is seeking to advance this line of defense, saying that what the SEC is doing is engaging in absentee enforcement because the token creators are not linked to the case, so they can't come in and defend against the charge of having created unregistered securities. Now, the definition for a security, or sometimes called an investment contract, lies in the Howey test, which posits an investment contract exists if there is an investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others. And so more simply, a way to think about that is the project's success dependent on a centralized team? Now with Bitcoin, it's completely decentralized. There's no team. There's nobody you can call if you lose the keys to your coins. So it has been said, Gary Gensler of the SEC has said Bitcoin's a commodity. He thinks of it as a commodity, but he has hinted very strongly that he considers most of the others as securities. But they haven't given clear guidance yet about how to know which ones are and which ones aren't and how to remedy it. So Wise pleaded guilty to 2 federal counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, but his lawyers and the Blockchain Association are pushing back against the civil charges of securities fraud. And, this is a really interesting case to watch because if the judge rules in favor of the SEC, it has a lot of implications. So implications for the exchange themselves of having listed unregistered securities and the potential that penalties will be levied against them for that. Also, for the developers, anybody launching a cryptocurrency project, would they then need to register with the SEC first? And the interesting thing is some have tried, but it hasn't been expedited. There's really hasn't been a way to do that. And then even for those buying and selling these tokens, are they engaging in the practice of selling unregistered securities? So there's a lot to watch in this case, and I think that's why the Blockchain Association has stepped in, and they are weighing into this, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It certainly will, and I appreciate that you broke down the how we test, because we hear that all the time. That's kind of the baseline for how we determine if something is a security, a commodity, or something in between. I mean, what was it about these 9 tokens, though? Why were these chosen? Were they the ones that were being sort of traded under the table, or?
It's a good question, and I'm not sure. I think just because it happened that they did do the insider trading, they did front run, so these became, the poster child. But obviously what happens with these particular tokens, by extension, everybody's going to be watching to see, okay, do they apply that to every other cryptocurrency project out there?
Wow. This does have some serious repercussions. And I wanted to say, do you love Gary Gensler or hate Gary Gensler? Where are you at? What's your opinion on him?
I have a right to remain silent. No, I'm not sure. I have to be honest. I watched Gary Gensler's class that he did on MIT at MIT. It's available on YouTube for free, and I really enjoyed it. And the man knows his stuff. And I also am very sympathetic to the case for Bitcoin, and I like that he is keeping that in another category. And so I don't know that he's not being consistent. He's been putting out these little videos right when these decisions drop. There's these little videos that he puts out, which are, I don't know, it all seems a little bit scripted to me. And so I'm not sure what to think of it. There's a lot in the Bitcoin community that think of the other projects as just a way to get your Bitcoin. And so there's a lot of people kind of rooting for what he's doing. And we have seen with what happened with FTX, where their partner firm, Alameda, they were driving up the prices on things that were worth nothing. And because they were trading amongst themselves to jack up the price, and then they dump it on unsuspecting retail. And all those people then, when they exit, the price goes down, and they suffered real damage from that. And so I am sympathetic toward some regulation in that sphere, but I really would like to see them be clear so everybody can move forward according to their guidance.
And maybe that's the silver lining here is really forcing them to be more specific about what are the rules, how can we better follow the laws versus getting smacked later after the fact.
Exactly, because there are a lot of institutional investors that are watching this space and they would like to get involved, but they don't want the hammer to come down on them like what seems to be happening in this Coinbase case. So there's so many people waiting with bated breath to see what's decided. And from what I understand, it's been 4 years since the SEC has put out any real clear guidance. So I'm just hopeful that they can get this resolved and we can move forward as an industry.
I also brought a piece about SEC and their case against Kraken. Kraken was fined $30 million in a settlement. And we're watching this because this could potentially create a ban on any staking in the United States.
Wow.
And it begs the question, are we protecting users or are we stifling innovation?
And, it goes back to the same question. And this whole idea of, is it a centralized product? Is it controlled by a centralized group? And I know that one of the big complaints about proof of stake coins or anything that's not proof of work, with Bitcoin, you cannot get Bitcoin if you haven't spent the energy to win the coins if you're a miner, or then you've spent money to purchase it. But the whole idea with a lot of these other projects is a person can pre-mine, so to speak, right? So I retain a bunch for myself and I give it to my buddies, and then I send the rest in the market, and then I have the power to really crash the market if I pull out and sell at the top and let everything else go down. And so this whole idea of proof of stake, it's funny because there are some elements that have been saying, well, proof of stake, it uses less power, it's a better system. But it's interesting that the SEC is coming after the proof of stake coins right now because I don't know, when I think about proof of stake, I often think of the whole idea of the rich get richer, right? So you've got a bunch of coins and you lock them up and then it grows. And so the more you have, the more you get. And so I do think it's relevant, a question, does that make it a security? And people were saying when Ethereum moves to proof of stake, is it going to become a security at that point? So we'll see.
I never put the connection between proof of stake blockchains and staking. So I had to do a little bit of research for those of you who are, not quite as up to date on this as I am, as you are. Let me tell you a little bit about staking. It's a way of earning rewards while holding on to certain cryptocurrencies on the proof of stake blockchain. So not on your proof of work blockchains. Those are two separate. The thing that was appealing to customers is they could get nice interest rates between 10 to 20%. So Polygon, Cardano, Ethereum, Solana, you could do that on any of those blockchains. To ensure that all transactions are verified and secured without a bank or payment processor in the middle. Your crypto, if you choose to stake it, becomes part of that process. It contributes to the security and efficiency of the blockchain project, and it makes the blockchain more resistant to attacks and strengthen its ability to process transactions. So Kraken, they paid the $30 million. They shut down all staking in the U.S., and now we're watching Coinbase and Binance, because they offer staking and are still operating legally. So
it's very interesting because we're also talking here about the United States. And so what happens then if the United States outlaws this kind of thing is a lot of it goes offshore. And Kraken was able to handle that $30 million fine, but will others be able to? So there's a lot of movement happening in the space. And
I like this tweet from Brian Armstrong. We're hearing rumors that the SEC would like to get rid of crypto staking in the U.S. for retail customers. I hope that's not the case, as I believe it would be a terrible path for the U.S. if that was allowed to happen. I'm glad you clarified why that would be, because those dollars would then get rerouted out of the U.S. to...
It does have a very chilling effect on innovation in the United States. And so the United States has to make a decision. Do we want to lead in this, or do we want to be left behind and send it other places? And again, going back to what the TBC is doing here in Texas, what Lee is always saying is we want a light touch regulation so that we have clarity, but we also have a structure that promotes flourishing. while at the same time protecting customers.
Guardrails, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, moving on to a more exciting topic. El Salvador has announced it is going to open a Bitcoin embassy here in the great state of Texas.
Amazing.
So El Salvador, as many of you know, made history in 2021 being the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender. And this would be the second such Bitcoin embassy. The first was in Lugano, Switzerland, back in October of 2022. And these embassies are founded to promote education and research. Now, Texas is known internationally, I think in part because of the work that the TBC is doing, but as being one of the most Bitcoin-friendly states in the United States. And we're also the home of so much of the mining. So we've been chosen by El Salvador to be the second destination for the Bitcoin Embassy, which is going to be an intergovernmental collaboration to work on joint prospects to promote Bitcoin adoption, education, and collaboration. I have to say, I think it's a really great honor that they've chosen us. And I love to see El Salvador orange pilling everyone. They're so happy with their decision and they want everyone else to see. I know back in May, they had a meeting of central bankers and financial persons from around the world, 44 different countries like Haiti and Uganda, and just testifying to their experience of using Bitcoin as legal tender. So, and also, I'm sure you saw, but there was a tweet that the president of El Salvador sent out. He's hysterical to follow, by the way. He's one of my favorite trolls. He's quite a troll. But there was a lot of doom and gloom conversation around El Salvador, and they had an $800 million dollar-denominated loan that was coming to maturity in January. And so everyone was saying there's all these pieces in all the mainstream media about how they're going to default on their debt and Bitcoin's gone down and they've lost so much money and this will show them. They weren't able to make it. The experiments failed. Well, he tweeted out, the president, Bukele tweeted out back in January that they paid it all back with interest. And, where's the sound from the media? It's silence. But they're really proud of the decisions they've made.
And it sounds like they share a mission with the TBC in fostering research and education. And it is such an honor to be the site of, to be up in the ranks with Switzerland and Texas.
Yes.
It's pretty incredible. And big props to the Texas Bitcoin Foundation.
Yes.
I saw Natalie Smolinski was there at
Good
the
for
round
them.
table. Truly incredible.
We'll have to do a pilgrimage down there and maybe partner with some of their events. I'm excited. On my Telegram channel, a friend of mine was tweeting out, does anyone know how to get a job there? So a lot of excitement in the space for what they're doing.
I love it. Great story. I wanted to end on something that's getting a ton of buzz right now. It's all over Twitter. Have you seen these guys? Bitcoin punks. Look at them.
I have.
Activity on the Bitcoin network is hitting an all-time high because of these dudes right here. Bitcoin NFTs. Ordinals, a new protocol deployed on Bitcoin, enables non-fungible tokens, called NFTs, to be appended to Bitcoin transactions, effectively bringing NFTs to the largest crypto network by market capitalization. Now, how is this even possible? Because up until this point, NFTs and Bitcoin were not playing in the same sandbox. They were totally different, church and state, right? But creators are building NFTs on the Bitcoin blockchain by assigning what's called ordinals to each Satoshi. The ordinals are linked to information like text, videos, images. So you could put JPEGs, audio files, videos, even video games. And it effectively creates NFTs on Bitcoin without the need for a sidechain or a token. 76,000 have already been minted.
Wow.
And the people that are really benefiting here are the Bitcoin miners. They raked a tidal wave of fees that topped $92,000 on February the 12th on ordinal transactions alone. This concept is entirely new, and there's no infrastructure, no wallets, no marketplaces supporting this kind of activity, no established tools for minting these yet. So You've bought one already, or you're waiting?
No, but I have invested in a Bitcoin project, which pays out in Bitcoin. And I've noticed that the fees have gone up. So we noticed, wow, larger fees. So I've been looking into this, and the great ordinal debate, there is a lot of controversy with this topic. I don't know if you've been following, but so there's two sides to it, right? So one is the side that would like to see every other cryptocurrency project fail, and they want to see everything done on Bitcoin. So they're happy to see Bitcoin become a smart contract platform. And so the thought is, we don't need anything else. All we need is Bitcoin. And true to form, the original Genesis block, Satoshi actually did code in there a message, which is kind of fun. It was the headline for the London Times that morning about the chancellors on the brink of a second bailout for the banks. So Satoshi put it in from the beginning. This is here to address this problem of money printing. So that's one side. But then you have the other side that's saying, hey, don't mess with the blockchain. And it's not an art gallery. It is a hard money, decentralized ledger. And there's a lot of concern as well that will it open up an attack vector against Bitcoin? Will people append things to the blockchain that then people can come and fault you for having a full node because it's on there? So true to everything in Bitcoin, there's always a debate, and Bitcoin Twitter and crypto Twitter are hashing this out, so to speak. Yes. But it's a very interesting development.
I do wonder very much what Satoshi Nakamoto would think about this development. But we didn't lie to you. It's been a week full of drama, a week full of all the things that we brought you today. We appreciate you joining us today. Please consider liking and subscribing. And if you're hiring or looking for a new grad, we are hosting an event in partnership with the SMU Blockchain Club. It'll be on March 29th at the Pi Tap. So come out, meet a new grad, and hopefully find your next employee. Be checking our YouTube channel. Our NAPE interviews are dropping, and more content is coming your way. We'll see you next time.